Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Bill Schmidt.
Oh, another week, and I'm glad we all survived the holidays. And easier when you don't have to see everybody. It's easier when you don't have to deal with all your relatives and aunts and uncles. What's going on? A lot of NFL mayhem to discuss tonight. I'm Bill Schmidt. This is Sports Map Radio. You're listening to Sports Map all night. And whatever you're watching in Philadelphia is not necessarily what we anticipated, but a lot of the same, play that we've seen out of one wearing 11 in the green jerseys for the Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz has not looked good at all. At one point, he was 1 of 6 in that first half, but closes it out with a touchdown to Dallas Goedert. Russell Wilson and the Seahawks turning the ball over on downs the first 2 possessions. A ton to discuss as that game unfolds in front of our eyes. We'll keep you posted right here on Sports Map all night. But we got a Week 12 in a nutshell that took cancellations or postponements. Sorry, I always mess that word up. As the NFL has now moved one game that was supposed to happen on Thursday for the third time already. Ravens and Steelers now going to be a Wednesday matinee because they want to light the tree at Rockefeller Center, and maybe that's just NBC giving a little bit of the knucks to the NFL, which actually I really agree with. I think the NFL has handled the COVID-19 pandemic through the first 12 weeks of the season pretty well, actually. And I don't know if they're getting as much credit as maybe they deserve. We'll discuss that in the second hour of the program because there was one decision they made this weekend that I thought was a little bit ridiculous. Could we see the first non-quarterback win the MVP since AP did it back in 2009? I think there's a possibility of that. We'll discuss with King Henry, Derrick Henry going absolutely bonkers this weekend. Teresa Walker is here in 30 minutes from right now. Covers the Tennessee Titans from the AP. She's a Hall of Fame reporter. She is here talking Titans with us, who got a huge win over the weekend, one that I think will clearly line them up to win the AFC South. And Matt Verderam wraps up the entire weekend with us. We'll hopefully hear from Russell Wilson. We're going to hear from a ticked off Matt Nagy. Just wait until you hear this conversation a little bit later on here. 1-800-224-2004. Hop aboard, and we'll check the 3 plays that pay. It's all coming up here tonight on Sports Map all night. Bill Schmidt, Andrew Carlson hanging out with you on Sports Map Radio. This is Sports Map all night. You can hang out with us. Tell us something good. 1-800-224-2004. If your team was good this weekend, then it was a fun Thanksgiving Day weekend. The Green Bay Packers, my team up here in Wisconsin, dominating the Chicago Bears, getting their 100th win in the illustrious rivalry, the oldest rivalry in the NFL. So that's something good, unless you're Matt Nagy, and we'll hear a little bit more of why Matt Nagy had not a solid weekend and an end to that weekend, and just how ticked off he was earlier today. You are going to enjoy in about an hour from right now. Not a good weekend for Matt Patricia, or if you're Bob Quinn, two Patriot disciples that were finally understanding right when it seems to click for most in the National Football League, that if you're not hiring Belichick for a coaching job or a personnel job, then you're doing something wrong hiring somebody from New England. It just hasn't worked for anybody outside of, I think now, two dudes that we are seeing it work with in the NFL. Brian Flores is doing a tremendous job down there in Miami, and Joe Judge also implementing a different style there in New York. But it comes off, and frankly, the easiest way to do it is just not be an ass. Like that's the easiest way to do it. Just don't be a tool. And for the most part, guys are going to respond positively to the way that you coach them. And those dudes maybe have learned a little bit from the errors of guys like Matt Patricia, who rolled into Detroit and like the second day that he's in, tells somebody in the media to sit up straight and have some respect. Why don't you have some respect and win a couple of games, bro? Have a winning record for once. 3 out of the 4 years that Jim Caldwell, was atop the Detroit Lions organization, they had winning records: 11-5, 7-9, 9-7, 9-7. I get they had different rosters. I get he had Calvin Johnson. This dude's come in, and I think the most that he's won in Detroit is 6 games in a year. Deserved to get canned after Deshaun Watson walked in there and dogged him for over 304 scores on Turkey Day. And finally, the Ford family had a little bit of enough with Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, decided to gut house. Then yesterday, one of the surprising moves, not surprising because of the wins and losses. We know that there's going to be major overhaul in Jacksonville, right? But then Dave Caldwell, GM in Jacksonville, gets fired after they lose to a Cleveland team that Matt Verderam is going to have to help me out here, national guy from Fansided and Stacking the Box podcast, and people across the country can too. I struggle figuring out what Cleveland is, because I want the Browns to make the playoffs badly. I'll tell you that much right now. We all got Brown fatigue, I think, last year when all the hype surrounding OBJ coming in, Freddie Kitchens comes in. They were the most hyped up team in the National Football League, and they were a disappointment because they didn't have an adult in the room to calm down situations and help show the team how to win. So now you bring in Kevin Stefanski. He's not flashy. He's calm, cool, collected, and exactly the adult in the room that they were waiting for there in Cleveland. So now they're not flashy, but they run the ball as well as anybody in the league. Their defense, when Myles Garrett is on the field, is a different beast, but they allow bad teams to just hang around with them. And there's some conflicting ideals that I have where if you're a good team, you can still win games when you don't play your best. But when does Cleveland get their best football? So they win by 2 this weekend as 7.5-point favorites on the road in Duval County. They hang on and allow Mike Glennon to hang around as long as they could. I skipped over whatever that disaster was for the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas on Thanksgiving Day because Antonio Gibson already put the Cowboys to sleep. They're 3-8. They're done. And they're not going to factor into the NFC East race. However, Washington now co-leaders in the division right behind New York, who just owns the tiebreaker. The Giants lose Daniel Jones for most likely just a couple of weeks. But as this week goes on, we'll learn more about what indeed is going to go on with the hamstring injury for Daniel Jones. Doesn't look great, however. So I would imagine he misses a couple of weeks. This division winner realistically could win 6 games and win the division. And if it's not Philadelphia somehow getting over the hump here and beating the Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football, Philadelphia's schedule gets really rough. They stare at Green Bay here coming up. There's a lot of losses on that schedule for the final 6 games for the Philadelphia Eagles to match up. Ron Rivera could have one of the craziest seasons end in a postseason division berth. You want to talk about craziness? COVID-19 craziness rocking the league, with the Ravens supposed to be the triple header on Thursday. Then it becomes a Sunday matinee. Then it becomes a Monday doubleheader. Oh, wait, we're going to go on Tuesday. And now it's Wednesday at 3:40 Eastern time because NBC wants to show the lighting of the Rockefeller Center tree. Frankly, I can't blame NBC. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, man. I'm not messing around my schedule, my TV schedule, to figure out when you guys want to play. When you guys want to play, hey man, we'll put it on TV. Then we'll figure it out. Then we'll throw you on. But for the league to continue forward with games when one team is clearly at fault for breaking protocol, I understand. But when it makes us have something called Kendall Hinton start at quarterback, just the third, this is a great one, just the third Wake Forest quarterback to play quarterback in the National Football League and start a game at quarterback. So let that chew and digest a little bit for Kendall Hinton, who made some history this weekend for the Denver Broncos, as they just get absolutely beat down by Taysom Hill. He didn't look great at all, but New Orleans rolls 31-3 in essentially a de facto bye week, playing up against a wide receiver at quarterback, and stays atop the NFC. Buffalo gets a win against Los Angeles. Justin Herbert looks as good as he can late, but Josh Allen got the best of him down there or over in Orchard Park. They're just continuing to coast while the Miami Dolphins end up going with Fitzpatrick this weekend and just knock down the Jets. And they've gave up 3 points to the New York Jets across 120 minutes of football. Whatever the AFC playoff picture ends up with, the Dolphins are going to be a part of it, but it's going to be a major question mark as to how they get to that final point. We're going to hear just the final moments in Minnesota from my guy Paul Allen on KFAN up in Minneapolis, because it's just some of the funniest audio you're going to hear. And a dude that lives and dies with each snap of the football team he broadcasts, as a wild one for Teddy Bridgewater, and one of those moments late in a game where the youth of the coaching staff in Carolina, I think, came back to bite him a little bit, with Joe Brady, the 31-year-old wonder boy, calling plays, and Matt Rule, who I really, really like as a head coach. They just got a little bit too aggressive and wanted to let the narrative take over maybe for the moment, and just made a clear mistake in the managing or mismanaging of the clock late, as they should have beaten the Minnesota Vikings and maybe put a death nail in the Vikings playoff hopes. Arizona and Kyler Murray, Bill Belichick does it again, man. Stifles the young star in the first time the quarterback goes and takes on the New England Patriots. The Pats upset Arizona. However, Cam Newton's talking about we don't care if we're winning sloppy. That was as bad as you could look for Cam Newton, but still come out with a win and still somehow be sitting in that playoff picture in the hunt right off to the left-hand side when they put up the 3 boxes right there on the far side. They're still in the hunt, but they're hunting during, I guess you could say, pheasant season, and they don't have anything to call out the pheasants and get anything moving. What about Tyreek Hill going absolutely berserk? 13 catches on 15 targets, 269 yards, and 3 TDs. It was 17 goose after 1, and Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid just put that baby in cruise control, maybe lean back the chair a little bit. They were driving a Tesla there for the last 3 quarters of that game. They were on clear cruise control. They might have popped on some Netflix on that TV iPad thing they got going on in those Teslas and just hung out, because I don't know whatever was going on in the last 3 quarters, but there was just a total lack of aggressiveness late, and I understand it. But the Tampa Bay defense is the story for me, which was supposed to be what led Tampa Bay to hosting Super Bowl 55. But now Tom again and Bruce Arians have to butt heads and go at it in the media. That's going to come up a little bit later on as we talk and hear from those two guys. But one of the most impressive games on the ledger for me this weekend was Kyle Shanahan bringing Nick Mullins and an improving and a healthier San Francisco team than we've seen the last few weeks, right? They get Richard Sherman back. They got Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson back. They didn't have Brandon Ayuk, but all they needed was Deebo Samuel on 11 catches and 133 yards to beat Los Angeles, open back up the NFC West for Seattle with a win here tonight in Philadelphia, and brought, again, another question mark as to what the Rams can be with Jared Goff at quarterback throwing 2 picks and just needing vitally a run game to keep them in these games out there in Los Angeles. 23-20 on a Robbie Gould game winner. Goff throws a pick 6 to a defensive tackle. The Rams were all over the place offensively. The Niners came in, and they've now beaten the Rams 4 consecutive times. 3 of the last 4 games on the road in Indianapolis. The Tennessee Titans have won, and that's where we're going to go next. We're going to talk to Teresa Walker coming up in 17 minutes from the AP. She's a Hall of Famer in Tennessee in the sports media industry, covers the Tennessee Titans, has done it for a while, and asking you at 1-800-224-2004 coming up here next, how legit is Derrick Henry of an MVP candidate? I think he deserves a real shot and a real look at the award. And I got a couple of numbers for you here next that just might sway you in that realm. And now 8-3 atop the AFC South. The Titans are back after losing 3 out of 4, and we're back in 3 minutes. Bill Schmidt hanging out with Andrew Carlson. We'll also look at our 3 plays that pay as well as we continue on here tonight at Sports Map All Night, hanging out with you on Sports Map Radio.
Wake up clear. The Raiders have now 3. Crown him. Where does Derrick Henry rank on your MVP ballot right now?
First, number 1. Hey, Derrick for MVP.
Not even close.
Not even close.
He's your closer, but he was your opener today, too.
Oh, most definitely. Derrick shows up every game. He does what he's supposed to do. And he's a great running back and a great teammate.
That's Ian Eagle on the highlights from CBS. And then NFL Network, Tom Pelissero hanging out with A.J. Brown after the game. After the Titans go on the road, 17 days beforehand, they were at home against this Indianapolis Colts team and got it handed to them pretty good on Thursday Night Football. That was a clear whooping that the Colts put on Tennessee. And the Titans, give them credit for this, man. Game planning outside of whatever you want to say as to what the Colts were able to put out there. There was no DeForest Buckner in the middle of the defense for Indianapolis, and Tennessee took it to him. They handed the ball to Derrick Henry 27 times, let him run roughshot on the Colts yesterday, and got themselves back in front in the AFC South. They're 4-1 on the road. I think they're almost a better road team than they are a home team, record-wise it shows, but to be able to travel like they do and have a quarterback that just is not going to be upset taking the short dump off passes, whatever you need to do, wherever you need to put up points, he can do that. There's nothing really flashy about the way Tennessee plays, but they run downhill, and A.J. Brown is as dangerous of an offensive weapon as there might be at the wide receiver spot in this league. But after the game, he's talking to Pelissero, and he answers the question that I think a lot of people are waiting to ask. How legitimate is Derrick Henry as an MVP candidate this year? The last time we saw that happen was Adrian Peterson when he came off of the ACL injury and ran for 2,000. Now, maybe that's the threshold you got to get to. Henry led the league with 1,500 last year, a little bit over 1,500 last year. He's got 1,250 already. He's carried the ball 250 times. The workload is never an issue. He's got 12 rushing touchdowns, one of which came yesterday that I thought was going to be a pass, whatever, the official score. The only people that were upset about it were Ryan Tannehill owners. And 12 TDs behind Dalvin Cook's 13. That's the only difference in the only stat on the rushing side that he doesn't own. I mean, Andrew, you and I did midseason awards after week 9, and both of us went consensus Dalvin Cook as the offensive player of the year. Henry was the ground, whatever the award is for best running back in the league, the ground player of the year last year. He's on track to do it again now because Kamara has taken a back seat here in the rushing offense that New Orleans is going with Taysom Hill. His fantasy owners are ticked off in the last couple of weeks. Dalvin Cook's in and out of the rehab room with injuries. And man, Derrick Henry is just an anomaly in the fact of this. At Alabama, he carried the ball like 25 times a game. Got docked when he went into the draft process and bullied people since he's gotten into the league. Right? His first year, he doesn't play a ton, is backing up DeMarco Murray. Second year, he starts taking a little bit more of the workload. Third year, he's all over the place. And now last year, he bursts onto the scene, leads the league in rushing because he's just that physically imposing. And he's doing it again this year. And I don't know if you have to get to 2,000 to be considered a legit MVP candidate. And I don't know, frankly, if Pat Mahomes is already just running away with it. But you look at Tennessee at 8-3. You look at how they play football, the way that they have to run the football to establish Tannehill in the play action and really open stuff up for Davis and Smith in the pass game. I think A.J. Brown can make plays in any offense any day of the week. But to get Henry moving and establish what kind of team they are, man, he is, if you just use the valuable term in the MVP candidacy, I don't know how he's not at least in the top 3. Right now, he's creeping towards the top for me. And I just don't know if he's going to get the legitimate looks at it that he deserves. But maybe because he is just a little bit of a unicorn in today's passing offense, you don't throw the ball 35 times a game, people are looking at you cross-eyed. Or if you are a running football team, it's a 3-headed monster and you just cycle in backs left and right. He is a 1980s player playing in 2020. And Andrew, he's dominating again. The last 6 games I was reading, He's had over 100 yards in 4 of the last 6 games, one of which was against Indianapolis on that Thursday night where they got behind 3 scores, and they just weren't able to run the ball. But, man, when he gets going, that Titans team is almost destined to put you away and dominate the time of possession. If you go by most valuable, I don't know how, Andrew, he doesn't factor into the conversation.
I think that he has to be in the conversation just because of what you pointed out and how much he means to that Tennessee offense and what he means to that team. And look, I understand that Patrick Mahomes means just as much to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Sure.
And like, given the performance that he had last Sunday, it's not like anyone's going to be sleeping on Mahomes. He's still probably going to win the MVP just based on the numbers he's going to put up and the positioning that he plays. But if Derrick Henry doesn't get some legit convo or is not legitimately in the mix and then at least talked about when this award is given out, then I think it's a little bit of a sham because you can tell just what he means to this Titans team every time they go out on the field. And you can tell in the players' interviews after the fact just how much they love being with him.
When he runs for 100 yards, they are just such a different ball club. Every single time that he gets moving, they can dominate a game. Okay, now I had that wrong. When he ran for 68, that was against Chicago in a game that they were still able to win. He did end up having 100 yards on a long run against Indianapolis on that Thursday night. And that factors into the 4 of the last 6 games that he's ran for 100. But just listen to those last, 6 games. Ever since the calendar flipped to November, he's gone for 112, 68 in a win, 103, 133, and 178. 4 TDs on the ground in the last 2 games. And if you look at how a team moves the ball, how he moves the pile, and even just that overtime game against Baltimore, I still can't get it over my head. The last quarter and a half, he was the best player on the football field. He was the reason why they were able to win that game. And it's establishing physicality, as Mike Vrabel said after the game. And at 8-3 now, they are a legitimate player in the AFC playoff picture because of that physicality they can impose.
It's a combination of a lot of things. Playing complementary football, playing better, coaching better. When you can run the ball for what we did and hold them to what we did, that's the difference in the football game. That's how you define physicality, being able to cover kicks, and also the way that you run the football and stop the run.
And it's also a way that you can cover up for your defense. I mean, Tennessee's defense is nothing spectacular, but they got guys up front. I think Jeffrey Simmons is a Pro Bowl player, soon to be. Rashaan Evans, one of my favorite inside linebackers to watch, 54 in that defense. And they're okay in the back end. Malcolm Butler talks more, I think, than he actually plays, but they're going to be okay. And once Clowney can come back, if he can come back this season and be somewhat effective, they're going to be a dangerous team. Let's talk more about it with Teresa Walker from the AP. Inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, if you need replacement parts and tools for your maintenance, repair, restoration project, O'Reilly Auto Parts has you covered. Trust the friendly, knowledgeable parts professionals, professional technicians have been counting on O'Reilly Auto Parts for years. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. Bill Schmidt hanging out with you. We'll talk to Teresa Walker about the Titans next. Keep it right here at Sports Map All Night. Auto Parts Studios here on Sports Map All Night. I'm Bill Schmidt hanging out with you. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate you giving us a watch on the live stream on Twitter, Facebook, and the YouTube channel, as well at Bill Schmidt Radio. Joining us now on the Progressive Guest Hotline from the Associated Press, one of my favorites. Found out that she's a Hall of Famer in the news media out in Tennessee, and we need to give that in the intro some respect. She is Teresa Walker, Teresa M. Walker on Twitter, and she's here on the Progressive Guest Hotline. Progressive making it easy, bundle your home and car insurance. Get your quote online at progressive.com today. Teresa, hope you had a great Thanksgiving and enjoyed watching Derrick Henry steamroll the DeForest Buckner-less Indianapolis Colts 17 days after catching a whooping on Thursday Night Football. How legitimate, Teresa, is he as an MVP candidate here in 2020?
Oh, I think he's absolutely making a case to be considered as an MVP candidate. Think of this. He is, the defending rushing leader, and right now he's leading the NFL. No back has led the NFL in rushing in consecutive seasons since LaDainian Tomlinson in 06-07. And Derrick Henry helped this, he led the Titans to the AFC Championship game in January, and he has them atop the division, a division that they have not won since 2008. And he's done it with 7 100-yard rushing games this season. So, that offense, when they get going, they just go right behind Derrick Henry, and he leads the way. I mean, this is a guy, let's not forget, last year he was in his final year under contract, never made that an issue, never made negotiations an issue this year, quietly gets a deal done right before the deadline as a franchise player, and he comes in and works and just sets, he's almost like your dream running back. Never fusses about contract, just works hard. When you ask him about a great game, he gives credit to everybody else around him and just says, I just had to run through the holes and go north and south. Kind of the perfect teammate if the GM was trying to draw it up. And he fits perfectly. And here's the thing, the Titans know what to do in December with Derrick Henry. Ride behind him and let him take you, let him be your Rudolph leading the sleigh, so to speak, now that we're into the Christmas season. We saw him do it literally last season. And, guess what? It's a simple formula, and they're running it again.
Well, and two, Teresa, if it becomes, and it's not a legacy award. It's not something that votes upon because of what you have done. There was a big storyline early in the year, and Russell Wilson was the first 6-game MVP because he hadn't gotten an MVP vote in his career. And it felt like that was where the narrative was taking us. At some point, the narrative's got to look at Derrick Henry's got over like 2,500 yards since week 7 in the 2019 season. And like you mentioned, man, he carried that team to the AFC title game last year and got some timely plays from Tannehill, no doubt. I really like A.J. Brown as well. I liked him more than Metcalf coming out of Ole Miss. He led the SEC in receiving, I think, 2 straight years. And they have 2 guys that can be workhorses there, and they're the same guy. Put up and just shut up and let their play do the talking for them.
Well, absolutely. And A.J. Brown is one of those team guys, him, Corey Davis. They're putting up some good numbers over the last 3-4 games, and yet they're also blocking in the run game. So, and you see them. A.J. Brown takes a simple cross and goes 69 yards for a touchdown. Once he gets the ball in his hands, Brian Tannehill's putting it where he can take it and run with it. And once he has the ball, he's doing damage with it. So, and look at the, Colts tried the onside kick yesterday late in that game, and he catches it on the run and just takes it into the end zone. So put himself into some very elite company there. So, they've got some tools on this offense. That's the thing. You can try to stop Derrick Henry. The Baltimore Ravens tried it last week, and, eventually the Titans and Henry just wore them down, but they still have some pieces that can make plays when they need to. A.J. Brown broke 4 tackles against the Ravens to get the ball in the end zone last week to put them, ahead and force the Ravens to tie them to force overtime. So it's fun to watch this offense right now. They just put up a season high 45 points. They held the ball for 35-33 on Sunday, the highest time of possession in the Mike Vrabel era. And the best thing is a defense that has struggled at times this year. Got plenty of time to rest, and the offense kind of carried the ball for them literally against the Colts, and that's a formula that they know can work.
And now, Teresa, they haven't had Taylor Lewan for a few different weeks. Quisenberry gets himself the start over at left tackle this week as well. But they have some dogs there in the inside. Ben Jones is one of the more slept-on centers, I think, in the league, and Saffold can really play as well at the guard spot. As a former offensive lineman, I'm always going to look at the big guys. But Derrick Henry is right to give them some credit, because when you're wearing on a team like that, and I get there was no Buckner, which is a huge loss for Indianapolis, but there were some huge holes that even my guy Andrew could have ran through as well yesterday.
Well, absolutely. I mean, yes, the Colts had their issues. No Buckner, Okereke was out, but the Titans, they were on the third tackle of this season, and I've seen the Titans go through tackles before, and it can be ugly when the team is having that many issues at left tackle. But and the rest of the line is banged up too. I mean, Ben Jones, Saffold, right tackle Dennis Kelly, all on the injury report in recent weeks. All this last week, Saffold missed last week's game against Baltimore because he had an injury. So, they've been able to plug in and pick up and move on. And yeah, those holes. I mean, that offensive line, even with the changes in the injuries and the limited practice time, they've been able to meld. And don't sleep on right guard Nate Davis. He's in his second year, and he has done nothing but improve. Pro Football Focus had him as his highest rated game yet as a pro. And on that 69-yarder, he picked up the defensive tackle, and then he knocked back the linebacker who was coming in to buy Tannehill enough time to get that pass off for the touchdown. So it's fun to watch what they're doing. I mean, the storyline, Mike Vrabel has preached all along: keep getting better as the year goes on, and put themselves in position to play meaningful games in December. They've done that now. One more win in the final 5 games, they match the 9-7 seasons that they've had, or the 9-win seasons of the last 4 years. But they've put themselves in position with the best start since 2008 to win the division for the first time since 2008, and do something that they couldn't do last year on their way to the AFC Championship game, and that's have a home playoff game. That was the top first goal for this franchise coming into this year, to try to save themselves a little bit of rest, a little bit of travel, and right now they're atop the AFC with a lead and the chance to finish that off and make sure they're playing in Nashville at least once in January.
Teresa Walker hanging out, talking Titans with us here from the AP on the Progressive Guest Hotline, only at Progressive, where you can quote, buy, and save on home insurance with Progressive's new Home Quote Explorer at Progressive.com. I think the inside linebacker duo now, Jalen Brown already out for the year after they lose him with the elbow injury. Rashaan Evans, one of my favorite guys to watch in the league at that spot. Their defense is banged up, and I don't know if that is getting enough look when you see the struggles they've had. Obviously, Clowney was the high price get late in free agency. He's been on IR, but Adoree Jackson, to me, has been the one that they've really missed a lot of this year.
Well, absolutely. I mean, think about this. They signed Vic Beasley and Jadeveon Clowney to boost their pass rush, and they cut Vic Beasley without ever getting a sack. Clowney has yet to have a sack. He's on IR. We don't know if he'll be able to come back. He had a knee injury that he was bothered with. So they're using Rashaan Evans to help on some of that pass rush. Harold Landry, who was kind of the ignored guy in all this, he has 4.5 sacks and just keeps playing, most of the snaps in every game, just carrying a strong workload. And they're just mixing and matching. Jayon Brown, they're going to David Long, a guy who, his brother died around the same time that Corey Davis's brother died of rare kidney cancer up in Michigan. And, he'd been on the COVID list. He just got cleared. He was able to go through the walkthrough on Saturday and ends up playing 36 snaps in Indianapolis.
Wow.
So they just keep finding places. They trade for Desmond King, cornerback, and, he came in and picked up a fumble and ran it for a touchdown in his first game, and now he's logging lots of snaps. Breon Borders, a guy that they picked up, was one of the guys on the COVID list when they had their big breakout at the end of September, and, he gets his first interception on Sunday, and I think the Titans are maybe his 7th or 8th team that he's managed to latch on with at the NFL. So, they keep, credit that front office for finding guys, and the coaching staff with, helping send a message, be ready, because we're going to probably be turning to you. And the guys have been responding. And that, that next man up cliche only works when the players actually buy in.
Amen.
And do the hard work to be ready. And the Titans have gotten them to do that.
And everybody buys into what Mike Vrabel sells. I have one Titan fan, a friend of mine that I played ball with, who just absolutely despises some of the defensive coordinator mishaps because they don't have one and they're allowing Vrabel to do so. Have you seen a difference in how Vrabel is coached now without the defensive coordinator throughout the year? Any strategical changes that you've seen throughout the year that has been an issue for them?
Well, it's easy to point to the third down defense struggles and say that's the issue. I mean, Lord, they're the worst in the NFL. But when you look at it, that's an area that they have improved on. In 3 of the last 4 games, they've held the opponent to 38% or less conversions on third down. So, it's probably not enough time to affect the numbers for the season, but they're being productive when they need to. And, yesterday they got, right after the Titans and punted the ball to them, that defense came up with a big stop and forced them to punt. And then, shut them down, 56 yards rushing, and was harassing Phillip Rivers for most of that game after he had kind of picked them apart on November 12th in Nashville. So, it's the easy thing to look at, but he's made clear Shane Bowen is the one who's calling the defense during games. He's not Dean Pease. But let's face it, who is Dean Pease? I mean, Pease has been coaching and been a coordinator, a top coordinator in this league for quite a while and been very successful. And, this defense, these guys knew what he wanted them to do. Has there been maybe a growing that has had to happen, getting used to Shane Bowen and whatever tweaks that they've added to the defense? I'm sure. But they've also had a lot of changes on that defense. Logan Ryan's gone, Jarrell Casey's gone. Dory Jackson, who's supposed to be a starter, has yet to play this season because of an injury that he had the first week of practice to start the season. So, they've missed a lot of pieces on defense, and yet they've managed to do just enough. But yeah, this is definitely a team right now being carried by their offense.
And you see the last 5 games, there's 2 on the schedule, Teresa, that stick out for me. It's this weekend against Cleveland. This game might be over in 2 hours and 20 minutes. I mean, you're not even going to have to sweat a deadline. I know it's at noon, but there's not even a thought of a deadline with this game, the way these 2 teams run the ball. And then that December 27th game against Green Bay, and Tennessee matches up really, really well against Green Bay in a downhill physical football team. The final 5 on the schedule, hard to find a blowout loss or a for sure L on the schedule. This is a team that could be closer to that 3 seed than anybody would imagine, and that win against Indianapolis really puts them in the driver's seat for this division.
Well, absolutely. And don't forget the win in Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore is a team that they were fighting for. They had to get the win inside the AFC as well because, there's 7 teams still in the AFC with at least 7 wins. So, being in top of the division is the best thing and certainly the thing that they want to. But you're absolutely right. The schedule, the game on Sunday against Cleveland and the trip to Green Bay, those are the only 2 teams in the final 5 games with winning records right now. So, they have a chance to, and let's face it, the Packers have had some struggles in Lambeau this year.
Yeah.
They can't play Chicago in every home game. So, it's going to be very interesting to see that. And the Titans have a knack for, kind of rising to the moment. I know they didn't do it against the Colts in prime time, but, they did show up in prime time against the Buffalo Bills when all they'd had at that point were essentially 3 glorified walkthroughs before that game.
Teresa, I'd add one more quick one here. Corey Davis, you mentioned him in the really just tragic loss of his brother. He's a former top 5 overall pick, but now they declined the 5th-year option on him, and he's having a really, really good season so far this year, over 600 yards through the air, and they've counted on him a couple of different times. What's the likelihood that he's there again next year on a rework deal?
Well, it's a great question because they've got several guys who are going to be hitting the market. Jayon Brown's going to be a free agent. Daquan Jones, Corey Davis. The way he fit in, they told him, that they really liked him, but he had to go prove himself. He's kind of been doing that, and it's been fun to watch him and A.J. Brown have some good games here consecutively to really balance that out. Defenses are going to really have to struggle down the stretch. Who do you try to stop when they're passing? And, do the Titans, are they able to keep him? They're also going to have to address that pass rush at some point. Is Clowney going to get healthy enough? Keep him, but there's only so much money that goes around. And in this year with the pandemic, and we don't know what it's going to do to the salary cap, it may be really tough for the Titans to keep him.
There's going to be a lot of business decisions made around the league. Teresa Walker covers the Tennessee Titans for the AP at Teresa M. Walker, a Hall of Famer in the media. We appreciate your time here tonight. As always, so generous with it. Have a great one, Teresa. We'll be talking soon because this Titans team is not going anywhere.
Exactly, and thank you so much, Bill.
Appreciate it. That's Teresa Walker once again here on Sports Map All Night. Progressive, proud to honor our veterans by donating cars to move their lives forward, especially in times of need. Learn more about their Keys to Progress program and plans for 2020 at keystoprogress.com. DK Metcalf has been unstoppable. Fill you in next on Sports Map All Night. Out, we are inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios talking to you on Sports Map Radio. This hour of Sports Map Radio presented by Rocket Mortgage. When you need certainty in the home buying process with a loan that fits your life, Rocket can. 1-800-224-2004. We'll open the phone lines up a little bit here in the next hour of the program. We're also going to recap the 3 plays that pay. Matt Verderam in 45 minutes from Fanside in the Stacking the Box podcast. A lot more to get to, and DK Metcalf has 10 catches for 177 yards. Goodness gracious. Sports Map All Night rolls on next, right here on Sports Map Radio.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto.
Takes a little hot today, Bill.
Here's Bill Schmidt.
What a day and what a week in the National Football League. A lot to discuss across the NFL as the COVID-19 pandemic runs wild on the National Football League, as it's been a difficult week to see. And we'll give you the latest on the schedule changes coming up here right around the corner on Sports Map all night. I'm Bill Schmidt. My guy Andrew Carlson is hanging out with us here as well. We're going to go through the 3 plays that pay in about an hour and a half from right now. As the ATM was open this weekend. It was open, Andrew. We were cashing out a little bit. The show was over 500. The show made money, and that's all we have to worry about. And we don't worry about this unit pricing thing. However, if we were to talk about the units gone with the show pot investments this weekend, Andrew, can you tell me what the hell happened with the Las Vegas Raiders this weekend? I mean, I don't know if they were hanging out playing craps at the Bellagio, which is a really, really fun place to play craps. They got a bunch of different tables in the whole row, and the craps tables are just electric. It really is. Even with 3 people to the side in the COVID-19 protocols, craps is the most electric game that you're going to play. But it's a little bit of a slippery slope that you get into with the Raiders, because I've been hyping them up all year long. I really like the way that they can throw the ball and run it with Jacobs. He goes out with the sprained ankle yesterday. It apparently isn't as serious as it looked right away. But they started 6-4 last year, lost 5 of the last 6 games. They started 6-3, and now they've lost 2 straight, and they're 6-5 now again, and just clinging to that playoff hope. But man, you go on the road, and I get you're going across the country. I get you're playing a different time zone. Sure, it's 10 a.m. to your body clock. But dude, you're playing the Atlanta Falcons and got drummed. They gave up 40 to Matt Ryan. Well, actually, not even really Matt Ryan. Younghoe Koo was the reason why they gave up 40 points. If that was your fantasy kicker, if Koo was on your fantasy team, congratulations, you won. Add that in with PED Will Fuller, and you're doing really, really well. Oh, yeah, Bradley Roby also testing positive there in Houston. Positive tests in the NFL changing the schedule. We'll tell you next. Sports Map all night. Some good offensive line talk during the break. Some of my favorite stuff to do. Carson Wentz threw one of the ugliest interceptions I may have ever seen. And I don't even know if I'm just saying maybe ever seen watching football, period. No, just watching Carson Wentz this year. I mean, the dude is a pick machine so far in the 2020 season. Carson Wentz doesn't look as good at all. And he had a moment in this game where Andrew, it looked like they were making the move. We heard all week long there were reports that Jalen Hurts was taking snaps with the first team in practice, that they were going to maybe work him in a little bit more. And all of a sudden, I think it was the first play in the second quarter, it was Jalen Hurts for the first time all year without Wentz on the field. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Going to have a lot of fun stuff to talk to with Matt Verderam coming up at 40 past the hour. Fired up. Going to be talking about finally Wentz gets benched. What happens next? Can they move? And, okay. Jalen Hurts completed a pass and then you're going to take him off the field. All right, cool. Sweet. Right on. Makes a lot of sense. It was so weird because it looked like it was finally happening. It looked like Hurts was actually going to get a run. He had some practice time this week. Wentz was atrocious in the first quarter. And then it was, no, okay, never mind. Go right back in there. And most backup quarterbacks usually got a headset on. Usually they're charting some plays. Instead, Jalen Hurts has got his helmet on pretty much all game. Looks like he's been ready to go in all game. And now Carson Wentz on a 3rd and 30 just threw a check down 2 scores. I mean, it is as bad as you could imagine for the Eagles. And this on prime time. Obviously, we're watching with the audio off here. But, Andrew, if they could boo and this place would have 76,000 usually in attendance, they would be letting it rip all night. Eagles fans would have become Seahawks fans midway through the second quarter because of how much they were booing Carson Wentz in this offense. It has looked absolutely horrendous all night.
We would have heard the boos from our respective cities. I mean, it's been so awful watching this Eagles offense. And if Jalen Hurts isn't going to get some run in a game where it's kind of out of reach at this point, after that pick that Carson Wentz threw, then when is he going to get the time? Because Carson Wentz has looked awful yet again tonight. And that pick, like you just said, one of the worst interceptions you're going to see from a quarterback who has a legit name in this league. I understand that we've seen some bad quarterback throws and bad plays over the past few weeks, but from someone who's got the name and the reputation of Carson Wentz, probably undeserved at this point now, to make that sort of throw, why aren't you letting the young guy play?
And no kidding. What would you call that 1-2 in the 2016 draft? You got Goff got traded up for, and they gave away, I think, 3 first-round picks. Did the Rams to go get Jared Goff when they moved up, I want to say, from 14 to get that number 1 pick. The Eagles went up, I think, from 11 or 12. They were both in the teens, I know. And they moved up to 2 with Cleveland to take Wentz. And then a year later, obviously, Mayfield, or 2 years later, Mayfield becomes the number 1 overall pick for Cleveland. I don't know how successful you can say the 2 are, but both of them now have been in a Super Bowl. Now, Wentz didn't play in the game, and Goff scored 3 points, but they've both been to the highest point in the NFL. And they both, at this point in their career, have monster contracts that both teams are looking at and saying, yeah, we could do better. I mean, the Rams this weekend with Jared Goff go up against San Francisco, who's definitely in the market to look for a quarterback at this point. Hopefully we can catch up with Joe Shasky out at 95.7 The Game this week, because the Niners got a huge win. They're always looking for a quarterback with Garoppolo. They're looking for any reason to get rid of him. But the Rams might be in the same boat where they just know the limitations that Goff has. Like, he's not bad, but he can wreck a game. Carson Wentz has wrecked pretty much every game that the Eagles have played in this year, right? I think, Kirk Cousins is a guy that can wreck a game if you allow him to. There's a lot of those guys that can throw you out of a game. But these two dudes were 1-2 overall. They've both had moments in seasons where you think they're going to be cornerstones for the team moving forward, and then they throw picks like Wentz did in the end zone, which was just brutal. I mean, nobody makes that throw. He had one-on-one coverage on the bottom of the screen and didn't even look, threw it straight at Quandre Diggs in the end zone. I mean, it was really, really ugly. I don't know who would have traded for a quarterback more this week? Philadelphia, Chicago, or Denver? The Denver Broncos start Kendall Hinton. I'm not even going to drop the somebody on him, something, because congratulations to Kendall Hinton, because dude stepped up and he's going to make himself some money on what he did yesterday and taking one for the team and going and playing quarterback on a moment's notice, staying up with the offensive staff till like 1 a.m, going up against one of the better defenses in the league in the New Orleans Saints. This was Vic Fangio yesterday after the game, and I love the passion that Vic shows in this piece and how he made a statement to not only the rest of the league, but man, to his football team as to where the blame laid and who deserved to be the GOAT after this situation that happened in Denver, where a practice squad undrafted rookie wide receiver from Wake Forest had to start at quarterback.
Well, I was disappointed on a couple levels in that our quarterbacks put us in this position, that our quarterbacks put the league in that position. You know, we count on them to be the leaders of the team and, you know, leaders of the offense. And those guys made a mistake, and that is disappointing. You know, obviously I haven't done a good enough job of selling the protocols to them, you know, when they're on their own. So, you know, part of that could fall on me there. I thought I was. We have emphasized it a lot. You know, we're really doing good with COVID up to this point as it relates to our team relative to other teams. But, you know, there was a failing there, and that's disappointing.
So Jeff Driscoll tests positive on Thursday for COVID-19. Brett Rippon, Drew Lock, and Blake Bortles all in a meeting room. The league gets a video of everybody supposedly distanced away, but not wearing their masks in a meeting room. And the league puts all of them on the reserve high-risk close contact. Understandably so, right? The one part of it that I did not like that the league made, and don't get this twisted, Roger Goodell in the league office, the folks over at Park Avenue in New York, were making a statement and making an example of the Denver Broncos. That's the only explanation for why the league did not allow any sort of wiggle room. Apparently, the team was looking and trying and petitioning to the league to allow them to put their offensive quality control coach, Ryan Calabrese, in as the starting quarterback this week, just because he knew the offense and probably plays scout team quarterback, right? And the league said no. And the only reason why I disagreed with it was because of the justification they said, which was, well, we don't want, you know, teams having their coaching staffs be a bunch of players that they can just use at a moment's notice. What the hell does that mean? I think teams are going to start hoarding, you know, scrap heap players to put as offensive quality control coaches and make them watch 14 hours of film and then say, oh yeah, maybe if we just need you, 4 other guys can't make the bus, you're going to be going in. Like that made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. The justification was wrong. If you just said, no, it's your own damn fault, we're not giving you somebody else to play with, cry about it, I would have understood it. It would have made a lot more sense to me, and I wouldn't have had the scream fest that went on Sunday Countdown here on the station. But it was just, it was such a weird justification for it. But the league was clearly sending a message that if it's your own doing, you will get no sympathy. Denver tried to, as well, politic for an opportunity to push this game back to Monday. And the league said, no way. If there's an outbreak, then we'll move hell or high water to get the games in, right? I mean, just the scheduling changes that they're doing with the Ravens-Steelers game tells you that. And check this out. So the Steelers and Ravens are now going to play on Wednesday at 3:40 Eastern time. becomes the first game in the NFL season to get postponed 3 different times. Then that results with the Week 13 game for Pittsburgh and Washington being played on Monday, a part of a doubleheader. The Week 13 Baltimore game against Dallas, which was supposed to be Thursday night football this upcoming week, becomes a Tuesday night game. And they're changing all this around to control the outbreak, make sure it's safe to go play football. And then they're going to move the games however they can and manipulate the schedule, do whatever possible to get the games in. And frankly, I've agreed with everything the league has done up to this point here through 12 games. At some point, I wonder if they use the option to just outright cancel a game and get the extra playoff team on each side instead of having a week 18 where you have maybe a game and a game or two. You're going to make a lot more money and recoup a lot of revenue that you're losing without fans in the stands. Just add one more team to the playoffs. This would have been the perfect opportunity with Baltimore and Pittsburgh and run the standings on win percentage. It's the reason why the competition committee agreed to it a couple of weeks ago. Said that if it was an option, if it came down to it, you could postpone a game, you could cancel a game, and then add another team to the postseason on each side. If those two teams were postseason competitors, if they had a chance to make it, that would make a lot of sense to me. However, the league is going to make sure the show goes on. And despite the fact that the reports are that it was clearly negligence with a personnel man or a equipment manager, or a strength and conditioning coach in Baltimore that forced the cancellations and started the outbreak. If you're doing something you're not supposed to, like Denver, you're going to pay for it. And essentially that was what it was. Yesterday with Baltimore, or with Denver having to play a practice squad wide receiver at quarterback, that's as close to a forfeit as the NFL is going to give you here in 2020. But we're soon to be 5 weeks left in the NFL season. And whether or not you think ethically it's right that you're playing football in a pandemic, that's a conversation for a whole different show and probably a totally different network. Because that comes onto the different aisles that you're hanging out on, right? If you're listening to Sports Map Radio, you want to see as many football games played in a season as you can. And we do too. But the way that the league has done it so far, I don't know if you could do it a better way. So somehow this is going to come down to the wire here in Philadelphia, and an onside kick to change the narrative. We'll tell you here next how that's going on Sports Map Radio. Bill Schmidt hanging out with you on Sports Map all night. The show is Sports Map all night. I'm Bill Schmid, Andrew Carlson hanging out with us. The ATM was open this weekend on the 3 plays that pay, and we'll recap it in about an hour and 15 minutes from right now. Matt Verderam is going to stop by in 10 minutes, talk some NFL with us here on Sports Map Radio as well. National guy for Fansided, as well as the host of the Stacking the Box podcast when you want to talk about hardcore football talk. He's the guy to do it, and he stops by in 10 minutes on the Progressive Guest Hotline. But we're inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts studios here right now. Need replacement parts and tools for your repair, maintenance, or restoration project? O'Reilly Auto Parts has you covered. Trust the friendly, knowledgeable parts professionals at O'Reilly Auto Parts. They know what it takes to get the job done right the first time. In fact, professional technicians have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for years. Stop by and talk to one of the professional parts people today. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. It's now gone final out in Philadelphia as Jalen Hurts almost got brought in. Instead, Carson Wentz threw a late touchdown to Richard Rodgers that was a Hail Mary-esque play that was a batted ball and looked as weird and wobbly of a ball as you could possibly imagine. However, it comes down as a 23-17 win for the Seattle Seahawks. And for some reason, Doug Peterson goes for 2 after scoring a touchdown down 14 with 12 seconds to go. And Andrew, how miffed are folks with the hook in tonight's game if you were going with the Seattle Seahawks on the 6.5 number?
I was about to say Peterson had the Eagles at plus 6.5. I'm pretty sure
he must, man. He must be the Pete Rose of the NFL right now, because there were folks early in the game when I think at the 8-minute mark. No, it was less than that. It may have been like the 5-minute mark, right? When Wentz throws the disgusting pick in the end zone to Quandre Diggs, down 11. You're down 20-9, and Peterson goes for it on 4th and 4 from, I think, the Seattle 15. Perfect opportunity, down 11. You need 2 scores. And you're obviously down with going for 2 anyway to tie it up. Make it a 1-score game, kick the field goal, and you're in business. Instead, they line up 4 wide, 2 on each. And it was an anticipation throw by Wentz just to throw it right into the end zone on 4th and 4. Made no sense. You kick the field goal right there, you're sitting down 8 with a chance to tie it up and send it to overtime if you get the ball back. Make it a 1-score game, dude. Don't overthink this. It's not that hard. I mean, it is hard. Don't get me wrong. Coaching the National Football League is hard. I've never done it. Won't ever do it. But to break these moments down in your head, it's 4th and 4, 4th and 5. Take the points and give yourself a chance. Defense had been playing good all night. They stopped Seattle on the first 2 possessions and turned them over on downs. One time, I want to say 3 or 4 yards away from the end zone. Let your defense go and get you the ball back. Let your defense give you a chance, and whatever the quarterback play is, let them give you a chance to do it. Instead, you go for it. You turn the ball over on downs, give up a drive. Seattle kicks in a field goal, makes it a full 14-point game. And they got the ball back with whatever, 1:10 to go. Wentz throws a couple of dump-offs, and a miracle gets caught by Rodgers on a deflection in the end zone for the Philadelphia cover. But as strange of a sequence as it was, Philadelphia finds themselves in a close game with a chance to go back out in front in the NFC East. And Wentz's stat line will look better after the miracle touchdown with 12 seconds to go. But, man, it doesn't take away how bad that team looks at certain points in the game. And for 55 minutes tonight, Andrew, they looked completely offensively inept tonight. And Seattle's defense is yards per game the worst in the league. They're a different team when Jamal Adams is on the field. I understand. But, man, Andrew, you were on this situation with Peterson. If indeed you fire, I always say you fire players before you fire the coach most of the time. But with that Wentz contract, one of them might have to go. And man, it could be the dude that won a Super Bowl 3 years ago with Nick Foles right now. Because that kind of stuff, those kind of mistakes, those kind of decisions are ones that get you shipped out. And I hate doing the firing thing, but it really is true.
I mean, think about it. So when they go for it on fourth down, when Wentz throws that interception, you need to get 2 scores there. You either need 7 plus 7, 2 touchdowns and 2 extra points, 3 plus 8 to get 11, so a field goal and a touchdown with a 2-point conversion, or 8 plus 3. There is no reason that you need to get that 8 right there. There is no reason for it whatsoever. And it just boggles my mind that that was the decision he came to. He pushed all the right buttons when they had that run to the Super Bowl. Since then, you can't say the same.
It is puzzling to say the least. Wow. And then the Jalen Hurts thing was as strange as maybe any in the game. Because coming out in the second quarter, they come back from break, Eagles with the ball, starting a fresh drive, and it's Jalen Hurts on the field. They pop up the next-gen stats. Steve Levy and Brian Greasy are all fired up. It's the first time all year that Jalen Hurts is on the field without Carson Wentz, and you think hey, man, they're going to give the dude a shot. It can't be any worse than this. He threw 2 ugly, UGLY, you ain't got no alibi type throws on the first series. One to your boy Greg Ward that he spiked it 3 yards in front of him. I mean, it was horrible, embarrassing. And then they go to Hurts and you're like, all right, now we're talking. It's a 1-score game. You can still win the game. You can give the guy an actual chance, take over the job. He's a winner. Jalen Hurts has always been a winner. Give him a shot. And then it's a 10-yard out to Alshon Jeffrey. All right, move the sticks. Let's go. And then nothing. In trots Carson Wentz, buckles back up the shin strap, and
30.
away he goes to a 3-and-out. That's how the game went today for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it was ugly. Matt Verderam stops by, talks about it next with us, and we're going to hear from Russell Wilson in a little while from right now. Keep it right here. This is Sports Map Radio. I'm Bill Schmidt hanging out with you on Sports Map all night.
Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Bill Schmidt.
This hour of Sports Map Radio presented by Rocket Mortgage. When you want the ability to adjust your loan options in real time, Rocket can. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number. You want to get in touch with us on Sports Map Radio, Sports Map All Night, the program. I'm at Bill Schmidt Radio. He's at Carlson Radio. And Andrew Carlson actually checked out the Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. Soiree, as it really ended up being an 8-round exhibition, ends in a draw. Fun. Sure. Talk about some investments we made in 40 minutes and cashed out with, as well as hear from Russell Wilson straight ahead. One more hour to go. Sports Map All Night. O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios on Sports Map Radio. Bill Schmidt hanging out with my guy Andrew Carlson. The ATM in investment opportunities was open this week. We'll look at some of those coming up in about a half hour from right now. And the 3 plays that pay. We gave you a little holiday edition, and it was good because the show was not great. 2-10. Last week, we moved on. We rebounded. And just like our guy Russell Wilson would say, it took a great effort, incredible opportunity. We got right back on the saddle on Wednesday. Didn't wait through the holiday. No, we got a W already there on Turkey Day. Thank you to the scoring opportunities of Will Fuller as he scored his final 2 touchdowns of 2020 because Andrew Carlson, Will Fuller today, along with Bradley Roby, 2 guys on your Houston Texans testing positive for PEDs. And as calmly as you can always do, because, it always happens once somebody tests positive for a PED, it was, oh man, I got some really, really bad advice. But it was my fault. I should have known it. And I will say that I commend Will Fuller for at least being upfront and honest as to why he tested positive. Congratulations to everybody, though, that had Will Fuller on your fantasy team, getting 1 W before he snuck himself out the door, as well as kudos to the Green Bay Packers for Andrew not trading a second-round pick for Will Fuller. That's a win in my book. That's a big-time W. Also, however, good for you if you made it through Thanksgiving without, overindulging in good food and good drink. Because if you did, however, we got the opportunity to calm that upset and uncomfortable stomach that overeating and overindulging gives you. It's called Nauzene. Nauzene's 4-minute formula quickly relieves stomach discomfort from overindulging. A quick dissolving chewable tablet with no chalky medical flavor, no bitter aftertaste. It's non-drowsy. It's not going to put you to sleep. Just take 2 to 4 Nauzene chewable tablets. They're available in your digestive section of your local retailer as well, in a 42-pack or in a 10-pack quickly at Dollar General. Make sure you check it out. Nauzene chewable tablets. Hear from the GOAT, Tom Brady, who had a very upset stomach the way him and Bruce Arians called the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's next on Sports Map Radio.
with Bill Schmidt on the Sports Map Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Bill Schmidt.
Hey Tom, as you guys head to your bye week, there's been some folks that have had some chatter about, you still look like you're running someone else's offense. One of your former teammates even said on TV that he thinks that you need a new head coach. What do you make of all that noise?
No, it's just external noise that when you're losing, that's what you deal with. So, I love playing for the guys that I play with, the coaches, the whole organization's been unbelievable. And I think it's got to go out, and I certainly have to do a better job of the last 4 weeks of the year.
That is Tom Brady after a loss yesterday in a backdoor cover against the Kansas City Chiefs on the road in Kansas City. That game was done after the first 15 minutes. It was 17-goose. Kansas City adding in a few field goals. I think it was 20-7 at recess. And as you look at where Tampa sits now, they've lost 3 of 4. And a couple of weeks ago, we were ready to put Tampa in the Super Bowl, me and the first team ever to host a Super Bowl and play in the game. And for Tom, to his credit, in the 5 losses that the Buccaneers have had so far this year, there have been each and every week a Tom Brady game where it feels like they're starting to have put all the pieces together, right? That their offense is finally where it needs to be considered as elite as many anticipated it would be, right? You see Tom go to an offense with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, add in Antonio Brown, bring in Gronk, who was tremendous this weekend, by the way. I mean, Gronk was able to eat up the inside of that Kansas City defense. When you put a linebacker on him, he's a little bit too fast. Even with his age right now, man, he can still separate with the best of them, moving around in the offense, finding holes. He is doing the job late into the year, which I thought it would be more of a taper effect for Rob Gronkowski. He's gotten better as the year's gone on. But the criticism does seem to continue with Tom Brady and Bruce Arians. And I don't know if it's mainly media driven. And Bruce Arians absolutely wants to push the football down the field. Tom Brady is much better when they utilize the passing game underneath, when you can flip it out to a back. I don't know that it's the scheme that's been the issue, but too many different times, like this weekend, you saw it in the first score of the game for Tampa Bay. They flip it off to Ronald Jones just on a check down swing pass, and Jones runs for 37 and a score, and then you don't see Ronald Jones for 2 series. And then it's the Leonard Fournette show, who maybe he's got an in with those boys down there in Tampa Bay, but I don't see Leonard Fournette really at all being an elite running back or a starting running back in this league right now, for that matter. And for Tampa Bay getting a bye at a time they desperately need it, they're 7-5. They're still right in the meat of the playoff picture at the moment, but it's not necessarily if you make the playoffs, if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we talked about this a little bit last week of what is a successful year for Tom in his first year in Tampa, Florida. What actually qualifies as a successful season? Is it a run through the playoffs, winning a playoff game, making the playoffs? Like, you look at a lot of these great quarterbacks that go somewhere else, and some of the greatest of all time, man, have been able to at least get to a conference championship game. Joe Montana leaves San Francisco and wanted to prove he had more time left. He takes the Chiefs to the AFC title game. Brett Favre circumvents his way over to the Minnesota Vikings after a pit stop in New York, takes them to the NFC Championship game, and was a dumb Brett Favre-like decision away from going to a Super Bowl, going to his 3rd Super Bowl and the first one with the Vikings. Look at Peyton Manning. He was gone for different reasons, but comes back from a neck fusion surgery after taking an entire year off, sets the single-season touchdown record with 55 and goes to the Super Bowl. Wins one 4 years later as a totally different guy, but still won a Super Bowl. Managed the game like he had to. So as the skills diminish, I haven't necessarily seen a steep decline in Tom's performance, in Tom's abilities. They just aren't necessarily playing to each and every one of his strengths. And I get that. I know that it's easy to get caught up in the fact that he's an intermediate thrower and they want to keep pushing the football down the field. It gets frustrating. But when you watch the Buccaneers and watch their defense the way that they've been torched in the secondary as of late, man, their front seven is legit. And not many teams got a Tyreek Hill that can run off and have 200 yards receiving in the first half because he just gets behind everyone's secondary. But outside of Antoine Winfield out in the secondary for Tampa Bay, there are 4 big-time holes in the back end. And you get into a firefight right now, Tampa as the 6th seed would be slated to go and see Green Bay in that first round. Man, you get into a passing firefight, Rodgers and Brady. I know it got away from Green Bay the first time, but I'm taking Green Bay in that game because I think if you got to throw the ball to win that game, Green Bay can get the Tampa corners a lot easier than Tampa Bay is going to consistently get those Green Bay corners. Now, Bruce Arians, in only BA fashion, said he wasn't buying into the hype. Nobody was. But even 4 weeks ago, before this 3 of 4 losing skid started, the worst performance they had was an 11 penalty loss on Thursday Night Football against Chicago. But it's been a hype train around this Tampa team that Bruce says he never was buying into.
Everybody tried to hand us the Lombardi Trophy in August. You just don't throw guys out there with names. You got to practice. You got to learn to get in sync with each other. That takes time. And
it does. And they've been able to move the offense forward each and every week. However, if you're going to get into a gunfight and you're going to consistently try to pump the ball over to Antonio Brown, and I understand it's his boy. It seems like it's his best friend. They're literally the stepbrothers meme of, did we just become best friends? Yep. But now it's 2-5 against teams with a winning record for Tampa Bay. They're 5-0 against the teams they should beat, teams that are under 500, and those games are good ones to win because good teams beat up on the bad teams. But when push comes to shove and they get into playoff games, they're going to have to go on the road right now because they're not catching New Orleans at all. That game yesterday was pretty much a death nail to them trying to catch New Orleans. And for Tampa on the way out here, it's a little bit of a different animal when you look at what the Buccaneers have going the final stretch of games. They come out of the bye. They host Minnesota, who's been playing better, but Kirk Cousins against Tom Brady, who are you really taking? 2 games against Atlanta, and then you get Detroit. They're not going to get tested again until Wild Card Weekend, which could be against Los Angeles, who you already lost to. Could be against Seattle, who we saw again tonight. Now they take control again over the NFC West. Could be against Green Bay, who they skunked in week 5 with a lot of revenge on their mind and, vinegar in the water. That would be a great one, though. You're going to tell me you wouldn't be chined up to see Rodgers against Brady in the playoffs? Tom Brady knows the bye week is always a good time to work on yourself in the self-scout that we all love to hear so much. But it's been a work in progress, says TB12, all year long, and it's no different even into week 13. It's going to be tough sledding for Tampa to not get on track, but to really prove to the rest of the league, and I think also in that locker room a little bit, that they can be good teams. However they slow down Dalvin Cook, I believe they'll do so. But Tampa was the flavor of the month in October. And now the calendar flips over to December tomorrow. They get a week off and 4 cupcakes leading in to the final stretch of games. There's only so many wins to have. and there's only so much practice time you can get into. So once you line up for that final run, these next 4 games against Detroit Lions team that's already fired their head coach and GM, Atlanta twice, who already did the same back in week 5. What we've seen out of Tampa so far is what we're going to get these next 4 games. Going to get a team that beats up on the bad teams, and it's a roll of dice against the good teams. 2-5 against teams with winning records. Let's see if they remain perfect against teams without one, because they got 4 winnable games on their schedule and one more chance to hop up into that 5 seed, that coveted 5 seed in the wild card right now, because that gets you as close to a first round bye as you can when you go and take on either the Washington football team or maybe the New York Giants. Washington and New York, the 2 teams leading that NFC East, after the Eagles can't get a win tonight at home against the Seattle Seahawks. The aforementioned Seattle Seahawks led by Russell Wilson. We're going to hear from him, along with a kicked off Matt Nagy. You are not going to want to miss the Bears head coach from earlier today. Next on Sports Map Radio.
Where are jobs in radio? Good call. Bill Schmidt on the Sports Map Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. Here's Bill Schmidt.
I'm Bill Schmidt, my guy Andrew Carlson alongside. We're going to go through the 3 plays that pay, the recap in about 10 minutes from right now here on Sports Map Radio, but we are inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts studios. Are your wiper blades chattering, skipping, or squeaking? Don't compromise your visibility with streaks or smearing on your windows. When it's time to replace your wiper blades, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and see their selection. The professional parts people will help you find just the right wiper blades for your vehicle. At O'Reilly Auto Parts, they'll install your wiper blades free of charge. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number always to hop on with us here on Sports Map Radio and tell us something good. There was some great content that came out of Matt Nagy's press conference earlier this morning that I got to play for you after his team gets drummed 41-25 yesterday by the Green Bay Packers and the 100th win in the most illustrious, oldest, hard-nosed rivalry in the National Football League. The 201st meeting yesterday, and the Green Bay Packers go up 195-6. They've now won also the most important meeting between the two back in 2010 when B.J. Raji houses an interception off Caleb Haney to send the Packers to the Super Bowl. I won't nauseate Bears fans anymore. Instead, we're going to hear from the winner tonight. As always, Russell Wilson, as complimentary as any, after his team goes off and beats the Philadelphia Eagles. They don't cover thanks to Doug Peterson, down 14, scores a Hail Mary touchdown and goes for 2 with 12 seconds to go. And, oh, by the way, one better, I want to say this is at the MGM, one better for $500K, $500,000 dropped on the Seahawks, given the 6.5. But Andrew, you were saying that this win for the books was one of the biggest swings that you could imagine on that 2-point conversion.
7-figure swings in the book's favor. So we're talking millions of dollars that bettors are losing out on, all because Doug Peterson, for whatever reason, decided to go for 2. Because you know what? A 6-point deficit sounds a lot better when you have the onside kick versus 7. I don't get it. I really don't. But I'm sure the books are very happy.
Man, I don't get it, but hey, same deal. Yeah, you're right. The books are happy. The conspiracy theorists have to be out in full force after that.
Oh, I'm sure we're going to be having a fire sale on tinfoil hats pretty soon here. There's legitimately no reason in my mind why you would go for 2 there. Unless, I mean, I can't even justify it. I'm trying to think of a justification, and I can't get one to go from my brains out of my mouth. It just can't happen.
Because the insanity of going for the 4th and 4 at the 15, that was crazy enough to me. Like when you decide that you want to go for 2 or you want to go for a touchdown there down 11 with like 5.5 minutes to go grab the points and make it a 1-score game. That one I'm not going to be able to understand. Then you make that move with 12 seconds to go when it's just a simple 7-7 night. Like that's all you need. Now, I will say the only possible justification that I can think of is Jake Elliott missed an extra point on the first touchdown of the game, right? The first time they scored, he missed an extra point. So maybe that's a reason why, like a slim idea as to why you kick it, but I don't know, man. Makes no sense to me. But Russell Wilson, it's easy to dominate when you have 10 catches for 177 yards to DK Metcalf, who pulls himself within the right inside the top of the leaderboards in yardage this year, receiving in the NFL with a huge night at the Link. And in primetime games, big-time games, man, big moments, Russ is as good as any. And he told Lisa Salters why just after the game tonight on ESPN.
Oh, man, I think just stand poised. I think just believing and always being prepared. I believe in being prepared. I believe our football team was prepared. We're playing championship football. We got through some tough times. We also doing a great job all season. Our defense really stepped up the past few games. It looked unbelievable. Carlos Dunlap's a big pickup for us. Jamal Adams has been unbelievable. Diggs, Bobby Wagner's as good as it gets. I don't know if there's been ever a better linebacker. There's been some good ones, and that's a big comment. But I'm just grateful for our guys. DK Metcalf made some great plays today. He got a lot of catches. Tyler special. Guys ran the ball really well. We had that holding call. We could have been another touchdown. We had a couple big plays that could have been there too as well to really break the game open. But we kept battling. We did it together, and that's what That's what championship teams do. And so I just love playing. I love being prepared. I love winning, and I love the process more than the end result.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense why you go into that. Now, also coming out of the Eagles locker room, or the Seahawks locker room, excuse me, Ben Arthur on Twitter had this one. DK Metcalf said he was mad pregame when Eagles defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz came up to him and said, I was in Detroit with Megatron, and you're not there yet. So Metcalf proceeded to go off for 10 catches, 177 yards, and 13 targets. His quote was, I had a little chip on my shoulder the whole game. Now, I love bulletin board material. Andrew, you know how petty I am, so I'm always down for that. But, bro, how dumb do you got to be to even, think to say some stupid stuff like that?
Even if it's true, and it is true, because
Yeah.
I love what DK's brought to the league in his first couple of seasons. Yeah, he's not Megatron yet, but why on earth would you try and motivate a monster like that on the other side of the field?
Calvin Johnson's also he's going to be a Hall of Famer. That's not a knock to say that you're not there yet, but say it at the Pro Bowl, right?
Exactly. Or after the game, even just say, "Hey, kid, that was an awesome game you just had.
Hell of a game, man."
But oh my goodness,
say yeah, man. Hey, you're right there. Not there yet. I was there with Megatron out in Detroit. You might not be there yet, but you're on your way, brother. That's a post-game thing. Pre-game to walk up to him like that? Wow. Now, I thought Jim Schwartz and Jim Harbaugh, that would have been Jim Schwartz's worst decision when him and Jim Harbaugh got into it in Detroit. Jim Schwartz made some stupid decisions when he was in Detroit as the head coach there. Had some success. But wow, talk about putting your foot in your mouth. Holy cow. Talk about that. What about calling out your entire coaching staff and giving laying a challenge down for the rest of your team? That's what head coach Matt Nagy of the Chicago Bears did earlier today to the rest of his organization after they get trounced by the Packers on the road on Sunday Night Football. Here's the challenge laid out by head coach Matt Nagy to the rest of his team.
Whatever it is, I know this. We better wake our tails up. Every freaking coach on the staff, every player better wake up and start understanding where we're at. Have some personal pride. Have a freaking sense of urgency. Know where we're at. Have some pride into who we're playing for and why we do this. And then go find a way to win as a team. That's my challenge to every single person in that building this week.
Have a freaking sense of pride. What about to the rest of the squad, Matt Nagy, as you tell us what last night felt like for you after watching the tape?
Yesterday was flat out embarrassing, and our guys know it. I'm not telling you something they don't know. They know it. But we're gonna step up, and all coaches, all players, and we got 5 games left. So for us, it's our own personal challenge as to where we're at and how we're going to do this thing. But that performance yesterday is ridiculous and can't happen. And obviously that starts with me.
Flat out embarrassing. Hey, good stuff by Matt Nagy, at least at the end, doing the and obviously that starts with me. Dude, he was white hot in that presser today. I had to, just because, I mean, come on. The Packers beat the Bears. You know it's going to be a good day for yours truly. But then to listen to that anger and frustration come pouring out in a Zoom call with Matt Nagy in front of an empty backdrop at Hallis Hall. Oh, I was loving every minute of it, injected into my veins. Give me more, give me more, give me more of that. I loved every second of it. It was so good. Mitch Trubisky also might be the starting quarterback again this week for the Chicago Bears. We got a lot of time to talk about week number 13 because week 12 still isn't over yet. Be playing on Wednesday afternoon, but the 3 plays that pay were cash money. Fill you in next and recap it with Andrew Carlson. I'm Bill Schmid. This is Sports Map Radio. Program Sports Map all night. We're back in 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere. laughing at ridiculous decisions and dummies, right? And that's just one of the best things that you can have. DK Metcalf, reportedly, if you didn't hear us in the last segment, was talking to the media on a Zoom call, and our guy, Michael Dugar, posted the full quote on Twitter just a couple of moments ago, as apparently Jim Schwartz put a size 15 shoe right in his mouth as he was talking to DK Metcalf before the game. DK says it was Eagles defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz that said, I was in Detroit with Megatron. The full quote says, one of the defensive coaches came up to me and made me mad. He was like, I was in Detroit with Megatron, but you're not there yet. In my mind, I'm not trying to be Megatron. I'm trying to be me. Had a little chip on my shoulder the whole game. Wow, you have to be so incredibly naive and just straight up arrogant or just an idiot to walk up to a dude who's playing some of the best football in the league right now when your team is 3-6-1 and go talk stuff to him before the game. And frankly, just I'm trying to put myself like in that position. I know Jim Schwartz wasn't trying to dog DK Metcalf, but there's certain guys at certain times you just don't say anything to. That could have been one of those, hey, DK, good stuff, brother. We'll talk after the game, man. All right, cool. Hey, man, be safe tonight. Good health. Sweet. You can go and say whatever you want at the Pro Bowl in the offseason. You're not there yet because you know exactly how he did it, right? He did it like your uncle that still thinks that he could play and wants to go to the Y with you and play some ball and put up some numbers because he's going to tell you that he can put up 18 a night. He's going to walk up to you and say, hey, good game, but you know, MJ still knew how to hit that fadeaway better than you. Well, yeah, no kidding. Like, 18-year-old kid. I don't know what you're talking about. You can just tell that was the arrogant dude that thinks that he can still ball and wants to talk some stuff. Hey, man, leave that to the professionals. All right, Jim? Leave that to the guys on the field to talk the stuff. Because we know that Eagles team likes to talk all game. Darius Slay will talk all game. What is 24 going into the locker room saying, hey, coach, thanks a lot, dude. You see me get shoved to the ground on the first series? That's because of you. That's coming out of your pocket. Before we get into the 3 plays that pay, that put some money in your pocket, let's talk about the best investment you can make this weekend, guys. The undefeated Errol the Truth Spence Jr. puts his welterweight world championship on the line. The former U.S. Olympian, the unified welterweight title holder, goes up against Danny Swift Garcia in the biggest fight of the year. All comes down on Saturday, December 5th, live on Fox pay-per-view. It's foxsports.com/PPV, how you order the fight. Spence is one of the most competitive and best boxers of his generation. Days after suffering getting the big win in front of a capacity crowd in Los Angeles, Errol Spence suffered a horrific single-car accident where he miraculously survived after being thrown from his car, flipped it several times, crashed into a utility pole, a horrific accident, and then the recent birth of his son have given the 30-year-old Spence a newfound look on life. Family is the biggest priority. He's moved from his high-rise apartment from Dallas, settled down into a home, 60 acres in a rural suburban area. He's got 20 head of cattle, horses, and goats. He's even learned how to ride horses. He's 26-0. He's got a new look on life. And I don't know if that's a good thing for Swift Garcia walking into this battle. I'm telling you guys, this weekend, Saturday, December 5th, the long-awaited return for Errol the Truth Spence Jr., fighting in front of his hometown fans at Cowboy Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Some believed that the 14-month layoff would take a little bit of the sting away from Spence. He's facing a 2-division world champion in Danny Garcia in the fight. It is going to be a run to greatness. Can he go to 27-0 against Swift Garcia this Saturday night, live on Fox Sports pay-per-view, foxsports.com/PPV to watch it on any screen you want. You can also go, as always, your local pay-per-view provider, but make it right there on foxsports.com/PPV. Spence Jr. against Garcia live this Saturday night on pay-per-view. All right, 3 plays that play. Wow, 3 plays that pay. We don't make you pay to get into this party. Instead, we just hand out winners. And the ATM had been working for my man Andrew Carlson. However, we all have these weeks. The show last week was not good. 2-10. So we got right back on the saddle, Andrew, 2 days later, and handed out some winners. Why don't you start with the big time cash out that you had in the college game that also the show pot backed up, and thank you for that.
So it started off pretty strong. We had Clemson minus 23.5 versus Pittsburgh at home there in Death Valley, and we talked about it last week. That Clemson team, you knew they were going to be absolutely fired up for this game, and Pitt never really stood a chance. I mean, Clemson jumped out to a 17-0 lead 10 minutes into the game and never really looked back after that. 23.5 was never in doubt, and unfortunately for me, it was all downhill from there. Up next, we had Texas A&M minus 14.5 versus LSU. And I'm going to be honest, I don't feel too bad about losing this one. Like, it stings that I lost it, but I don't feel too bad because, look, I feel like we were on the right side of things for the most part. Texas A&M was shutting out LSU for the majority of the game. They were up 10-0 early. They were up 20-0 with, like, I don't know, a minute or so left in the game. LSU got a meaningless touchdown, changed the score to 20-7. They covered the 14.5. But, I mean, look, it sucks when a team scores a touchdown with a minute to go and a meaningless touchdown with a minute to go to change the betting outcome of the game. But I feel like Texas A&M minus 14.5 was still a decent play. It just didn't end up working out that way. And the last one, Texas Tech at Oklahoma State under 54. This was the one play I had this entire week that I was upset with. Just because it was never even close. I mean, we have talked about on a few times now how Big 12 football has been lower scoring than normal this year. That trend that kind of stopped in this game. I should have followed our boy Matt Peralt's advice from Pushing the Odds, and I was following the trends. I was talking about what has happened, not what is going to happen, and well, look, Texas Tech and Oklahoma State hit that over on the 54 probably at halftime.
Yeah, and what did happen was one team dropped a 50 burger in that game. What was it, 50-44, I think, in the final? You mentioned that Clemson game. Senior day in Death Valley. They honor Trevor Lawrence. They talked to him after the game. He's like, yeah, it's my last game here in Clemson. I can't wait to, go at it with these guys and get another win. The story in that one, though, for me, Andrew, did you see earlier in the day that Florida State had canceled another game the day of against Virginia? Now, this one was shut down, I believe, by the ACC is exactly how it came out. But because of positive cases in the Florida State department, 2 weeks ago, or I guess like a week and a half ago, right? Saturday ago, when Clemson was in Tallahassee and Mike Norvell in the Florida State medical department said, no, we can't play. A backup offensive lineman on Clemson has tested positive. We aren't playing. And then it happens the same week again. But head coach over at Virginia didn't go all Dabo on him, Andrew. Instead, he just said, I have no desire to go back to Florida State, so we're fine. They're like, are you guys going to reschedule and take on the Seminoles? He goes, I have no reason to go back. We're all good. That was the second week in a row that a team traveled to Tallahassee, was ready to play the game, and the day of the game gets canceled.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. I understand the need to cancel it, but you have to be able to forecast the stuff further in advance than day of when the team is already in your city ready to go. That can't happen.
Oh, that was the thing. It was just like, and the week before with Dabo, it was just so strange. It was wild, but man, karma always comes back around. All right, one of the best games that I watched all weekend long, Iowa State and Matt Campbell getting one on the road at Texas. Iowa State needed to get the win to essentially lock themselves into the Big 12 championship game, and it was looking bleak for a while. Sam Ehlinger gets the ball back with, I think, 5.5 minutes to go. A 3-and-out quickly. And backtrack with about 8 minutes to go. Texas is up, or they're up 4 at the moment. They're inside the 10-yard line. They go for it on a 4th and 1. Iowa State stops them, flips the field position, gets a 3-and-out, scores with about a minute to go in the game. Ellinger's going to have his chance, have an opportunity to get his man into field goal range, and takes a sack on third down. With 3 seconds to go, they have to try a 57-yard field goal. Kid had the leg, man. It had the distance. Just moved wide left. If indeed Ellinger doesn't take the sack, he had about 5 yards to just go right out in front of him, pick up a couple of yards, take the timeout. Texas had one, and I think he probably makes it and sends it to overtime. Instead, Iowa State wins at 23-20. Breece Hall scored the final touchdown. My guy Brock Purdy led the drive. It was awesome. Enjoyed every second of it. Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers just drummed Texas State. They had 42 points, I want to say, in the first half. It was over quickly. And Coastal Carolina might not get themselves into the college football playoff as an undefeated team, but even better, they get college game day this weekend. So congratulations to all the folks there at Coastal Carolina. And I went on the wrong side of the Iron Bowl. I thought Auburn and our guy Bo Nix was going to keep it somewhat close against Alabama and the Crimson Tide. They just could not do it. Mac Jones and that team drummed them. 5 touchdowns by Mac Jones, tied an Iron Bowl record for most passing touchdowns, and Alabama cruised to a W in the Iron Bowl and drove right past Auburn. But luckily, that was the lone loss on the college football slate, and it got better from there. For me, Andrew, what about the pro game for you?
All right, for the pro game, we started off pretty well with the one of the noon games. Again, we had the Dolphins -7 at the Jets. And look, I'm basically said anytime I get a half-decent team that's laying just single digits against the Jets, at this point, I'm taking it. I have no evidence they are actually out there trying to win football games. I understand the professionals, but as long as Adam Gase is the head coach of that team, I have no confidence that the organization is trying to win football games. So if you give me single digits against the Jets, I'm taking it. So we cashed that. Unfortunately, the next two, not so good. Chiefs -3.5 at the Bucks, and you mentioned it all the way back in the first hour of the show. The Chiefs put this baby in cruise control after they got up early in the first quarter. And look, I was ready to cash the ticket after Tyreek Hill put up 200-plus yards in the first quarter. I was like, man, Tyreek's about to break some records. The Chiefs are going to roll to an easy, 10, 15, 20-point victory, and I'm not going to have to worry about this 3.5. Well, lo and behold, the Chiefs put it in cruise control, and the Bucks didn't really have a shot to win the game, but they did cover that 3.5. They made it 27-24 at the end of it and made me a sore loser at the end. And the last one, Chargers at Bills over 52.5. Some mystifying decision-making by Anthony Lynn and the Chargers offense in the red zone led to me not covering as they went for it on fourth down a couple of times when they could have kicked field goals and led to us getting the over that we needed. So those are the two plays. Feel bad about them, but, at the end of the day, at least they're defensible. And so I can live with that.
And you were going to come close. Now, it still wouldn't have covered the over if the Chargers would have not run the ball with 50 seconds to go with a running clock down 2 scores after catching a Hail Mary. Another puzzling decision. All right, got the W right away on Turkey Day over Texans against the Lions. That was easy money at 51.5. Deshaun Watson absolutely torched the Detroit Lions, and then send Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn packing. You see, your Houston or the Detroit Lions fans started a GoFundMe and put together a bunch of money to donate to Deshaun Watson's charity, thanking him for dismissing Matt Patricia. Now that's good stuff. Now, if only they could get a GoFundMe page to get rid of the Ford family owning the team, maybe that organization could be something. The Panthers and Vikings, one of the most entertaining games of the weekend. Just some priceless Paul Allen calls that we got out of this one as well. And the Panthers should have won the ball game. They were getting 3.5 from the Vikings and ended up losing by 1, but we still cashed that ticket. And the Tennessee Titans, told you go a little bit on the money line as well. They were catching 3 against the Colts and dogged them thanks to 27 carries, 178 yards, and 3 TDs by Derrick King Henry. So that evens me up on the college football slate. 4 under 500 in the NFL. Andrew Carlson still cashing +3 in the NFL slate. You cannot beat that. Keep it right here. We'll wrap things up next right here on Sports Map All Night.
goalie down has made everybody forget about the muff, and it's tied the game at 27. Chad Beebe.
Guy is the best. That's Paul Allen, KFAN. This has been Sports Map All Night. Thanks to Matt Verderam, Teresa Walker for hanging out with us. Andrew Carlson and I are back tomorrow right here on Sports Map Radio. Peace.